The views and opinions expressed during Eye on the Triangle do not represent WKNC or NC State student media. Your dial is currently tuned to Eye on the Triangle on WKNC 88.1 FM HD1. Thanks for listening. Good morning, everyone. Hope you're enjoying your day. My name is Emilia Rivadeneira, host of Eye on the Triangle, and with further ado, let's get into some news.
Hi everyone, this is Senait Richmond and I'm the social media manager of the Nubian Message. Today we have our very first segment of the Nubian Minute and we are going to dig into headlines and break down what's really impacting Black students and minority communities at NC State.
Hi, I'm Aiyanna and I'm a writer for the Nubian Message.
Hi, I'm Johnathan. I'm a writing and photography correspondent for the Nubian Message.
Hi, I'm Olivia, and I'm a layout designer for the Nubian Message.
All right, first off, we want to say happy MLK Day, everyone. This is such a hype day, celebrating Martin Luther King, and happy day off. And it's also another day.
There's also, I saw there's going to be, is there a march here?
Yes.
I believe.
Yes.
And then, there's marches downtown as well if you want to participate. And a lot of service opportunities as well that you can find online if you want to help out.
Yeah, they're doing one with the MSA. I'm pretty sure that you can just sign up and walk through Stafford Commons, and it's like when you see that many people who are just gathering, and it helps you see how much Martin Luther King's legacy lives on even today.
Yeah, a few sign makings were happening this week, so hopefully you all had a chance to make a sign for the March Like Martin.
Oh, so we can go into some local news. One of the articles that I wrote this week was about the governor and how their powers have been stripped by the GOP legislation. It was written in a Senate Bill 382, which was titled for disaster relief, and it did have some disaster relief in it, moving funds. It was $227 million, I believe.
Wow.
But it also had in it how some things that the governor had powers to do, it will not be able to do anymore. So one was they can no longer appoint to the state board of elections and county board of elections, and 2 elected Supreme Court judges are going to be removed. And then another thing was the Highway Patrol is going to become independent now from the Department of Public Safety, and the commander cannot be removed by the governor. So they have a lawsuit going now. Roy Cooper and Josh Stein have started a lawsuit in order to try to get those powers back. Yeah.
And for people who don't know a lot of what's going on with that, could you explain why that's so important?
Really, it's because of the checks and balances to make sure that each branch has its role and that no one branch is more powerful than the other. And so that's essentially what the Republicans in the legislative branch were trying to do, was gain more power over Democratic offices, the governor. And that's really undemocratic. Yeah. It shouldn't be that way.
You know, that reminds me of something that a friend of mine was telling me earlier when Joe Biden stepped off his, he had left a speech and he was like, the world is turning more into an oligarchy. And I was like, what are your thoughts on how political systems are working right now and how that's kind of tied to a lot of money and people who have money having political power when they are not really in politics?
I definitely see that.
Yeah.
I see it a lot. And especially for myself, it makes me wonder, like, how it's going to be in the future for me and my family and even just everybody else around us because we don't have money. And I feel like a lot of politics is not really what's best for the people, but
Mm-hmm. Aiyanna, our
yeah.
editor-in-chief of the Nubian Message, somebody asked her, what is politics? And she said it's basically like a system of power or based off. And I thought that was so interesting because when I think of politics, I would think people who want to be change makers or people who see something in a system or see like a life structure and want to create something better. But instead, it really has become more of and has always been a bit about power and control.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
I think it's interesting. Um, oh, just selling the mic. I'm curious on how it'll impact North Carolina, especially as a state, because I know a lot of people disagreed with some of Trump's policies, and the governor was kind of our insulation from some of that. So I wonder how much will really change in the coming years and what will be for the best and for the worst.
I definitely agree. I just feel like wherever like the trajectory we're headed on is kind of declining because of so much interest in the economy and not really like the betterment of our people, which is very concerning. Even like as a college student, it's kind of alarming. Like, what is the job market going to be like when we leave? Like, as someone who's like a creative, like, what is that? We already know that like America doesn't care about artists or anything like that. They're more concerned about the American dollars. So just being like in this kind of new stage where it's not like a working class, it's more like you if you're making money or you're not making money. So I don't know. It's just scary. I guess that's the only way I can describe it.
And then also, that ties into climate change as well. And there's a lot of things that we could do to fix it, but are not being done, which is scary because we can see how the climate is deteriorating. And I feel like that could be so easily fixed. Like in COVID, a lot of jobs transition to online. And a lot of people say how their jobs can be done online, but they're required to work in the office. So it's just giving off more carbon emissions. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting how also with climate change and we see in America and in North Carolina how the environment impacts lower income communities even more. And whenever it's bad pollution or when the EPA was established here in Raleigh or like in a county that's near Raleigh, it was because of toxic chemical waste that was being dumped into a majority Black and minority community. And when we start seeing those types of laws being passed or taken away, like they continue to take away a lot of legislation that protects the environment because they stop seeing value in it. And those every law that they pass or take away has so many layers, and that's why they're always trying to find loopholes.
Mhm.
But when they take them away, they're taking away a lot of times security and protection, and that's just going to lead to more and more like vulnerable low income people, and that's going to lead to just a constant division of this like lower income becoming poorer and the richer getting even richer.
Mm-hmm.
And generally, I think it all just comes down to who's in office, old white men. So if we have all these boomers in office, we're not going to see much change because they don't care about what's going to happen in 30 years because guess what? They're not going to be here. So
Right.
It's just troubling.
Yeah.
Speaking of an old boomer that's going into office, why don't we talk about what's happening today?
Today, oh,
The inauguration.
yay! Let's get hype. How do we feel, America? I think this is a very interesting. I wouldn't even say coincidence. What do you think?
I have so many feelings, but because we only have 10 minutes for this portion, we're going to keep it short. But just the fact that we have our first felon into office is just the great trajectory that we are setting 2025 in. So yeah, that's amazing.
And you see the contrast between like he was a felon and at the same time MLK was a felon, or like he had to go to jail for a little bit. And you see the difference of like one was fighting for justice and one was doing it for like personal gains. But aside from that, I think today we should use it as more of a way to celebrate Martin Luther King and not let something like this overtake his legacy, because Martin Luther King Jr. and what he did for spreading awareness, civil rights, and really empowering Black people, and a lot of not just Black people, but minorities and people all across the world to stand up for your own personal rights. That is much more impactful and lasting, and that's what we should be focusing on for today. So we have a little poem that Liv's going to read for us today to end our call. And after, just make sure to pick up an issue of the Nubian Message. They are all around campus. And if you can't, we have a website, that's thenubianmessage.com. And you can also follow us on Instagram, the Nubian Message. All right, take it away, Liv.
This is The Funeral of Martin Luther King by Nikki Giovanni. May she rest in peace. His headstone said, free at last, but death is a slave's freedom. We seek the freedom of free men and the construction of a world where Martin Luther King could have died and preached nonviolence.
All right, thank you so much, everyone. This is our first episode, and we hope you all have a fantastic day.
Happy Martin Luther King Day. Bye.
Happy MLK. Thanks for listening.
Hello and welcome to WKNC's Eye in the Triangle, your source of local news where we dive deep into the pressing issues affecting our communities. I'm your host, Emilia Rivadeneira, and today I'm here with two special guests, Dr. Richard Bedlack, professor of neurology at Duke University School of Medicine and founder of the Duke ALS Clinic, and Sam Pearce, assistant professor of the practice at Wilson College of Textiles at NC State University. Thank you so much, both of you, for being here today. How are you guys doing?
Fantastic. Anytime I get to talk about my two passions, fashion and ALS, it's a good day.
I agree
Amazing.
with Dr. Bedlack. I second.
Amazing. Well, today I'm also super excited to have you both in the program, as we're just gonna dive into a remarkable project, as Dr. Richard, you just mentioned, that kind of combines ALS and fashion as well. So just to get us started, can you tell us about the inspiration behind this project?
You want me to start, Sam?
That sounds good to me.
Okay. So I've been taking care of people with ALS now for 24 years. I've seen about 5,000 unique patients. And, you know, what I've learned is that the disease doesn't have to touch the best parts of them. Like, it's tough on the outside. It's a rapidly progressive disease of motor neurons, meaning that, you know, over just a few years, for most people, they become completely disabled. Many people have a drastically shortened survival, but, you know, it doesn't have to touch them on the inside. I've seen a lot of people who are able to maintain their spirit their hope, their sense of humor, their kindness, their joy through the disease. And so I've really, as I try to find a way to fix the motor neuron problem, I'm also trying to think about how can I strengthen those parts of a person. And so I know for me, fashion is a huge part of who I am. When I get up, like I did this morning, and put on a really fun jacket, it just seems to elevate me through the day, allows me to maintain my positive energy, and it radiates off on others. And I know I've encountered some people with ALS over the years who feel the same way. And it just breaks my heart when the disease progresses to where they can't wear the clothes that bring them joy. It's too difficult for them to put them on. It's too difficult for their caregiver to put them on. And, the type of fashion that's out there for people with disabilities, what's called adaptive fashion, to be honest, it kind of looks like pajamas. It doesn't fit well. It tends not to be very stylish. And so you can see that a part of them is being lost that doesn't have to be lost. And so I reached out, Ben, I guess a little over a year ago, reached out to Sam and, just let her know that I was seeing this and asked her to brainstorm the problem with her students. And so that's how this project got started.
That's amazing. I don't know. Wait, sorry, Sam. Were you say
No,
something?
you're all good. I was just gonna say Dr. Bedlack reached out to me and some other professors here at NC State, and I have a background interest in adaptive fashion. I have two machines in the sewing studio that are adapted for a student that's in a wheelchair and another student that has arthritis. So I have I've tried to adapt the fashion studio as much as possible for people with disabilities to feel included, especially in the making of fashion. And this was such a great opportunity for me and my students, and they really enjoyed thinking and getting to learn more and taking their original project, which never really changed, a step further and had to think about adaptive design and designing for all abilities.
Yeah. I was actually gonna ask you like what kind of like drove you to join because I know that, Dr. Richard contacted you and like as well. And so like what kind of like made you said like, yes, like I want to join this project, like this is important, like this needs to like happen.
My like motto in life, I like helping people. I need to be helping people in some way. I feel very strongly about everyone feeling included and the fact that some people don't feel included in the clothes that they wear every day and don't feel represented by that just kind of like made me think that I could solve this problem with my students and give them something fun to work on and make them think even more about the things that they're designing. And one of my students actually was able to present their project to Sliverts, which is the adaptive wear company that they make really great clothes, great adaptive wear, but sometimes not that fashionable. So she was actually able to meet with one of the designers there and present their project. So that was like a real life return for that student, and it inspired a few of my students to stick up for adaptability in the future. So that was a a real life like return on investment from this project that they will be more likely to advocate for adaptability in the future after participating in this project.
That's really cool to hear. And another question that I had for both of you is why do you think accessible fashion is such an important issue to address nowadays? Like especially now, like why are we addressing this issue now rather than, like a year ago or like a year coming from today? Why now?
Well, I certainly wish I had, recognized this problem sooner and also, recognized the opportunity to collaborate with Sam and her students much sooner. But I guess a couple things for me. So one is that I currently take care of a couple of patients who are very similar to me in terms of their love of fashion, like really eclectic fashion. And so it was especially poignant to see them losing the ability to wear these amazing clothes that I first saw them in when they came to clinic. And then the other, this is sort of something that I'm seeing happening in society. I feel like there's a lot of things going on that we cannot control that can take away our positivity and joy right now. And so I have really, tried hard in the past year, especially to think about, well, what can I change? What can I do to bring more positivity and joy to the world? I want to be the I want to be the change that I want to see. And so that's just part of this whole, you know, introspection reset button that I'm trying to push over the past year.
Mhm. And for you,
Uh,
Sam, sorry,
you're
go ahead.
good. Sorry.
Oh wait. So I was gonna say, like, why do you think accessible fashion is such an important issue nowadays? Like, if you have anything to add to that, to what Dr. Richard mentioned. If not, that's totally cool as well.
I think he had a really great answer, and I am reminded we had a Pain Points Zoom meeting call with his patients and his team where we got to meet them, talk to them, talk about what fashions they like to wear before ALS and how we could adapt like current offerings to what they would have normally wanted to wear and felt like represented them. And one of his patients said, I want people to see me. I'm still here, even though I have a disability. I want to be seen. I want to be vibrant. And that really inspired and empowered my students throughout the project. I think like all three groups ended up like picking her as the inspiration and being like, I like want to be really vibrant, and all of them were inspired by the stories of we got to talk to three patients and all of them were so inspired by each of their stories and named their like print collections after them or named their colors after them or had like a little quote that they had from the interview in their project that kind of led them through the semester. So I think people are talking about adaptive fashion now because it's important and it's important that people bring light to it.
Mhm.
And I don't know what else. I just want to help people feel represented by the current offerings. And some companies do that very well, and some companies don't. And I want to send my students out into the industry to be the change, and they might not have thought about that before because it's not something that's really talked about. You know, designing for a traditional body is what they're learning. This is like one of their last classes, so I want to introduce them to maybe something they might run into. And if they are more likely to advocate for adaptive design in the future, that might be change that they can make within their company, whatever, wherever they go one day. We'll have at least one person on their team that's been like, oh, I did this for my senior year project. It's very important. I know how to do it. I can lead. And or like we need to start offering things if they don't already. So hopefully the more people that participate, the more change that happens. It can be less local and more global in its reach. Even though this is, I mean, NC State's a huge university, but it's a small program. So I have probably about 15 students that are working on this project each semester. But still, 15 is better than one. It starts with one or two, though, and it grows.
Yeah. And this is the first semester that the class is being taught here at NC State, right? Or
No,
last
ma'am, it's
semester.
the class that is taught every single semester. It's a senior level course in fashion product development. It's called
Mhm.
FDPM. It's a really great program over here at Wilson. But
Mhm.
this is the first semester that I've taught it in the fall, and I'm
Okay,
teaching
yeah.
it again in the spring. So, or again right now.
So this has been ongoing for how long? Like, like the class or the course like has been like here at NC State.
Probably since the program has started.
Okay.
So it is one of their senior level, like product development courses, and their traditional project is to they team up teams of 4 or 5, and they have to take an idea or a theme and take it from idea conceptualization to full execution of a fashion product line, meaning that each student is responsible for one look, whether that be like, oh, I'm gonna do like a top and pants or like a dress and a vest and a jacket. Like they have to make a
Yeah.
full look that fits with their theme. It has to be inspired by current fashion trends so that they don't create anything in a vacuum, because I also think that's very important to like contextualize what they're doing to the population that they're eventually going to be designing for. I forget what the statistic was, but there are a lot of people that have varying levels of ability that we also need to think about as being a part of society, because the more you exclude them, that's going to create other problems like feeling depressed, not feeling good about themselves, which is maybe going to make their condition worse. They'll exercise less, they'll get out less, they'll be around people less. So that's going to make regress if they are feeling a part of society, feeling good about themselves, able to go out with their friends, able to go to events and wear fun things that they get complimented on. Think about like how empowering it is to receive a compliment from one of your friends. Be like, "Oh my gosh, I love your dress today. You look so cute." And like when you don't have that, I feel like that affects the mental state. So that like pushes you forward when you receive a little compliment on like what you're wearing, because it's a facet of yourself in a way. So that was a really long answer to say that it is very important.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, kind of quoting what Dr. Richard mentioned at the beginning, it's kind of fashion is kind of part of who you are for some people, like for a lot of people as well. Um, and your answer kind of touches on my next question that was going to be like, what are some of the challenges that patients with ALS face when it comes to clothing? You know, you mentioned kind of like sometimes if it doesn't fit right, like it can affect their mental health as well. So what are some of those challenges and how is this project kind of um more like more so battling those challenges that we see?
Well, Sam, I'll mention my perspective, and then you can share yours. So what I've seen is, a lot of stylish clothes are kind of tight, and if you can't move your arms and legs, your caregiver who's trying to put those things on, it's very difficult to get on something tight if someone else is trying to put it on you. A lot of stylish clothes have a lot of buttons, small buttons, zippers. Those kind of things become very difficult for a person with, hand weakness or even a caregiver to manipulate. And, caregivers, they're super stressed with this disease. So even though it might not sound like a big deal to, fasten 16 buttons on a really cool jacket, I mean, when you add that into everything else that they're doing, you can kind of see why, maybe we'll just wear the pajama top today instead of the really cool jacket with the 16 buttons. So that's what I've observed. And of course, I had no background really in designing fashion, which is why turning to Sam and her students has been so valuable because they understand like how to take that description of a problem and fix it.
Yeah.
There are workarounds for certain things, and that's kind of what we learned from his patients and his team. So after they kind of came up with their ideas for the class, they were able to talk with Dr. Bedlack and his patients about pain points that they face. So their designs really didn't change any. I mean, they did, but in spirit, they did not. They were just like, okay, we can add magnets maybe instead of like hard snaps and like little tiny zippers. And there was one student who did an amazing job, Claire, and she had a top that could open three different ways. So you could fully, like, I made them like sit down and not move when they were putting on their clothes in class and doing prototyping. And I was like, okay, like, Lauren, you get Claire dressed and see how hard it is or how difficult it is for you to put this on. And so that led them to take their designs a step further and continue innovating instead of just being like, I'll put a zipper in it. It's fine. It's going to be like, oh, one girl did like a double-sided wrap skirt that literally you could just like come up in the chair, slide underneath, and then fold it over, and then you could flip it on the other side. Another one of my students, Hannah, made a skirt that could detach and be either a long skirt or a short skirt, depending on how you're sitting. Velcro, like bigger snaps, bigger zippers, just easier for motor function, and also magnets, thinking about where the magnets are as well. Like you don't want magnets, think about sitting in a chair. You don't want magnets like down your spine. So you might put them on the side or hide them in the front or somewhere where it's not as apparent. Um, for the body to like sit on. So I also made them think about sitting on them all day and the challenges of that. So they were able to take their designs and take them a step further. And they, at the end of class, when we were asking, like, oh, like, how'd you like this project? They all said we're surprised at how easy it was to design for adaptive. We just had to think like one extra step. We just had to take it and be like, okay, I'm putting in a zipper, but they like the zipper's really short and really small. Like maybe we can add magnets and add like an overlapping placket, or maybe we can make it double-sided and it can Velcro. So it's just taking that idea and taking it a step further and helping more people, and people that don't need adaptive wear could still wear these designs and feel very satisfied by how fun and fashionable they are.
Yeah.
But it also can work for people that need that extra step in
That was,
adaptability.
That's super cool. Yeah.
that was actually one of my favorite things, Sam, what you said at the end there. Listening to the students describe their experience with the project. I think my favorite of the many great quotes was, we started out with the idea that we would make clothes that were cool, that we would want to wear, and then we made them adaptive. And like that, that's exactly what I want people to be able to see, is that these are human beings. Like, you know, they're not examples of a disease. These are people, that have a life, and style is part of it. And yeah, now they have a challenge, but it doesn't mean that we start by making something adaptive and then, slap it together just so it's easy to get on and off. We start by recognizing that these are people, that want a certain style that's going to contribute to their spirit and their hope and their quality of life. And then we make it adaptive. And that's exactly what they recognized and embraced.
That's super cool. That's amazing. And I kind of want to know a little bit more about the, um, I guess behind the scenes of like the collaboration between like your patients and then like your students as well. You mentioned there was like a Zoom meeting to kind of like know, um, what they wanted. And so like how has this like collaboration been so far, for kind of both sides?
Well, it's been one of my favorite collaborations in my entire 30-year medical career, because it really combines two things that I'm passionate about, ALS, obviously, but also fashion. And it just really, it fits nicely into what I was saying earlier, which is that until the day comes when I can fix, the disease, when I can fix whatever's killing the motor neurons, I want to strengthen my patients inside spiritually, bring them as much hope and joy as I can. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. Part of it is getting to know who they are and focusing on the parts of their lives that the disease may be taking away, where I can collaborate with someone to give those back. And that's exactly what's happening here for my patients who love fashion and style.
I agree. It has been such a wonderful collaboration and something that I'm very interested in, with being able to help someone and empower them and be a hope giver, because hope is so important, especially when you're dealing with a tough time. And it's important to give them, they are such vibrant people, and it's important to give them that brightness and vibrance back. It's been such an amazing collaboration and has really shaped how I also in turn think about fashion, and how like my students this semester are also continuing this collaboration, and like how on board a lot of them were and how curious they are. Like I have most of my almost 30-person class coming tomorrow, even just to see like examples, see if they're interested. A lot of them are. I have like three groups that are very interested in helping. So just continuing this collaboration. And like I said before, letting your network of two people that really care about something can reach 15 people that really care about something, and those 15 people will go out into their networks and they will also really care about something, and that will begin to make like visible change on a like nationwide level, global level with fashion because fashion is everybody wears clothes. Um, so it's been a really wonderful collaboration, and I'm very lucky to be able to work with someone as passionate and knowledgeable as Dr. Bedlack on this project. And I hope that I'm also in my PhD program here at Wilson College of Textiles for textile technology management. And I'm hoping to kind of continue the collaboration and do something with my doctoral level project because my students have that pain point meeting, have a Zoom meeting where they review prototypes and things, but maybe don't get to interact directly with the patients because of the fast nature of the class. It's a semester. They kind of have to move very fast as soon as we get to work in the class to be able to have something because the semester started, it ends in April. So we got to get going and get moving. But I would be interested in continuing and doing like a longer project where I'm doing some sort of survey, I'm seeing what exactly they like and being able to create some sort of guidelines for pattern making for adaptive fashion and able to create something concrete that they can keep and wear for people with ALS. So that was
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, that would be amazing. And actually, I was gonna ask if the patients ever get to see the designs or like have they ever like seen the designs before? What has been kind of like their response of like what the NC State students are doing?
They were able to attend the Zoom meeting through Zoom. We broadcasted the final exam, or they were invited to come in person on Zoom, whatever was most convenient for them. And I was very touched by the level of participation. Dr. Bedlack, his team, his patients are amazing and very participatory. Like they were giving feedback, they were asking questions, they were telling, like saying what they liked in the chat. They were like, "Oh my gosh, I love that. I wish I had one of those." Like they were very receptive and very open, and even the students of mine that didn't want to focus on adaptive wear just wanted to like do a fashion collection or focus on sustainability or another issue that was important to them. His patients still ask them questions and we're like, okay, so what is this and can I and they were like, if you were to make this adaptive, how would you do it? And then they would walk through that process. So even with the students that focused on something else that was important to them, they were still participating and giving feedback. And he had a lady from his team that came, I think her name was, it's slipping me now, but Lily. I'm great with names.
Yeah.
And she was even like giving feedback to the groups that weren't doing adaptive, but doing sustainability or something else. So they were amazing to work with and they have seen the designs and they're loving it. So I'm excited to continue and see what they create this semester.
Yeah, Amelia, I just loved a couple of quotes from my patients. I mean, they obviously were blown away by the style and the fact that these things were really made based upon them. I mean, they presented themselves to the students, what they liked, the challenges they were having, wearing what they liked, and the comments that I heard back that still give me goosebumps. One person said, I felt seen, and the other person said, I felt like I mattered. And, that's exactly what I'm trying to do in every aspect of the lives of my patients is to make them feel seen and make them feel like they matter, even if they're losing motor function.
Yeah. Um, and I know that you both kind of touched on this a little bit before, but what do you envision this project kind of inspiring changes in how textiles and design programs approach more like accessibility in their curriculums? Like not only here in North Carolina, but this is like, this is something so remarkable. Like I am personally so inspired by this project and like by the quotes that I'm hearing right now. And so like like, do you ambition this project kind of like inspiring that change that it's needed in like fashion and like to provide more accessibility?
I'll let you take that one, Sam, since you're in the fashion business.
I think it was kind of like what I was saying earlier when two people really care about something, they can reach that network of the 15 people that do. Those 15 people will also go and have careers and jobs, and one of them may become a professor in another institution and then be inspired to teach about adaptive wear or have a project with adaptive wear, or one of them may go work for a company and start advocating for more adaptive fashion for that company and fight for that. I think it just needs people to fight for it, to be seen, to matter. And I feel like as that network grows, it will grow and more people will get involved. I am unsure whether it is taught at other institutions. I don't believe that it is as much as part of like a curriculum, but I do think it would be useful, especially in 3D design classes. So there's a software that a lot of the students learn called Clo, and it's like basically you can have like an avatar. You can make an avatar with any type of measurements. You could be like bust 34, waist 40, like whatever measurements that
Yeah.
they have. And I would be interested to see how someone could be maybe body scanned that has ALS and clothing made for them based upon that body scan with their exact measurements in a chair, wherever they're at. We meet them where they are and be able to go from there and create patterns that work with what they want. So I'd be interested to see how that even could be integrated into our curriculum at state. Maybe not for a semester long project, but maybe like for like a little month project where they learn about it and it's just exposure, because a lot of the students don't learn about like adaptability or like ALS, and that's not common over here because we're just doing fashion, so we're kind of in the fashion bubble, but we need to pop the fashion bubble and get outside and see that everybody is different and everybody is so beautiful.
It definitely seems to be a niche, I think, for this in the fashion world. Like, although I don't know the business, I certainly have, loved fashion since I was a kid and been watching fashion shows and been to Men's Fashion Week, and you just never see um, anybody with disabilities featured in any of these shows. There doesn't seem to be any recognition of this, market share. I mean, when you see ad campaigns in magazines like Esquire and GQ, it's always, this super fit, apparently perfectly healthy, beautiful model wearing these clothes. But I would actually venture to say there's probably a lot more people in the United States living with disabilities than people who look like these models. And so I think hopefully, what Sam and I are doing is setting off a spark here. And as these students get impressed with how easy this is and go to work for these companies, maybe someday we'll actually see, as part of fashion shows, a segment of disabled models wearing adaptive fashion and in these magazines and ad campaigns. Because I just think there's tens of millions of people. I mean, ALS is a rare disease. There's only 30,000 people in the US with it, but there's tens of millions of people with disabilities. And I don't think there's any designer out there that recognizes this part of the market and is trying to design clothes that are stylish and adaptive for them.
Yeah. Um, well, that would be pretty cool actually. I mean, to see that happening, that would be amazing. And just kind of to wrap up our conversation, is there anything else would you like to add?
No, I would just say this is one of the really cool things about living here in North Carolina is that I feel like we have an incredibly diverse state, not only geographically, but in terms of the interests of people here with all the different universities and the different foci. It's been awesome. I've lived here for 30 years, and it's been awesome to just be able to reach out across the Duke campus to someone who works on something completely different, and to have that turn into a research study, and now even reaching across institutions to. I doubt there's ever been a neurologist and a professor at a fashion school who I don't think there's ever been a collaboration between two people like this. So it's just really cool to build those new bridges, especially because ultimately it improves the lives of people with these disabilities.
Yeah, for sure.
I
Um,
say good luck.
but yeah, thank you so much again for being in the program. This was amazing. So yeah, thank you both so much.
Thank you, Emilia.
This has been your host, Emilia Rivadeneira. Thanks for listening to Eye on the Triangle. For back episodes of the show, go to wknc.org/podcasts. Music in today's episode is Krakatoa by Noah Stark, licensed under Creative Commons.